Hey, welcome to the Cam and Otis Show. We're a father-son business podcast where we talk with other lifelong learners about making an impact and solving big problems. And, I continue to say I've got that problem, but it's getting better. We're making progress and fixing this thing. And all it takes is y'all to, right down here, I'm pointing with my pen today instead of my crooked finger because maybe my crooked finger was leading you in the wrong direction. Hit that like button as you're watching this because I know you listened to it on the way home and you were thinking to yourself, man, I should watch this on YouTube now. So now that you're on YouTube, hit the like button and then off to the side hit that subscribe button because when you do that, then what's going to happen, Camden?
Well, then they're going to get those notifications. They're going to get early notifications when all the episodes come out, when all the shorts come out, when Whiskey Words comes out, all that sorts of good stuff. You're going to be the first one to find out. We all want to be the first one there, so you can be the first one to watch all of our clips.
I know. And you know what today is? Today's Wednesday, which means Whiskey Words. So while we're recording this, very soon a Whiskey Words will come out and you will get some words with whiskey.
Some whiskey wisdom.
By me. It might actually have some wisdom. No, I ain't going that far to say that it has wisdom in it. But it might. It just might. So you better subscribe to the Cam and Otis Show YouTube channel so that you can get that notification.
Yes, sir.
And I'm sure that our guest Hannah did that the moment she heard about us, and she has been a raving fan for all those days now. Hannah, how you doing today?
Good, excited for this. I didn't know there was whiskey involved. I'm like, where was the memo?
I know, I guess it's early morning for us.
Does whiskey happen on a Wednesday? Right, it's early morning for you guys. It's nearly 6
Okay, you can have a whiskey then. We're all right with that. We'll stick to coffee over here.
She is demonstrating it's 5 o'clock somewhere. Thank you very much, Jimmy Buffett. God rest your soul. But it is 5 o'clock somewhere. That is right. So, Hannah, I want to, speaking of the 5 o'clock and the times and the dimensions, how do you like that? How do you like that transition?
King of the segue.
I want to dive into this multidimensional business thing because I was looking at that and I was like, whoa, this is really fascinating stuff. So tell us about this multidimensional business philosophy that you teach.
That was very smooth. Firstly, I want to say I'm very impressed. I've never had an intro that smooth before, which is brilliant. And most people are confused. So I say that I do multi-dimensional business, and I get a lot of like big eyes staring back at me, being like, Han, you're going to have to be a bit clearer than that. So what do I mean by that? My original training was personal development, human behavior, the science of potentiality, right, in humans. And when I came to business, this annoys some people. I had no business experience and I scaled the company to 1 million in 2 and a bit years. And that's not very common. It's especially not common for a hippie in disguise, right? And so
I'm going to have to stop you there. Hippie in disguise. Your disguise ain't that
good. Come on.
You picked that up, but was it the intro? I'm wearing all black, right? That's disguise clothing. Okay, so just hippie. So a lot of people, are very intrigued by how have they done this? It doesn't make sense that the business has grown externally so quickly. And it really got me thinking about what's taught conventionally in business, right? I've invested in a lot of business mentors over the last, I don't know how many years. And the first mentors that I invested in were marketing teams, right? They would be the people that I lovingly call like the marketing bros, 5 steps to 1 million, the exact framework to make your first 6 figures, that type of course. And I was so fascinated in these spaces because you'd get a small percentage of people that would go on and make 6 figures, 1 million, 10 million, whatever. And then you would get a big percentage of the group that didn't. And so my mind really got hooked on why and how can we change that. And so I started to realize that what I'd learned in the context of healing was the exact same in business. And it was actually the key for everyone to be successful, right? I believe everyone has got the potential. Not everyone wants to, and not everyone will, but everyone has the potential. Okay. And so I started, this is where the hippie bit comes through. I'm just laughing to myself because I know what I'm going to say. I started merging shamanism and business, as you do, as most people do, right? Normal conversation. And one of the shamanic frameworks principles that I was taught was that life exists on 4 dimensions. The first dimension is the physical dimension. So in business, we talk about business strategies. We talk about, you need a strategy, you need systems, if you didn't have any strategies or systems, you wouldn't do anything, right? That's important. But then you also talk about the second plane of reality, which is the emotional and mental plane of reality. And these are all the beliefs and the emotions that you hold in your mind and your body that are actually blocking you from, as people call, your next level. For example, right, if you're scared of public speaking because you think everyone hates you, that is not conducive to 7 figures, right? Like, I joke because that was me. And so all of these pieces are part of the emotional and mental body of business, which is what I call it. Then we've got the third layer. I always describe business as a Victoria sponge cake because, in Victoria sponge cakes, you have layers. Mm-hmm. So, you've got the bottom layer, which is the foundation. You need to have strong, structures and strategies, because if you've not got a strong foundation of a Victoria sponge, I always say you're going to have like a sloppy bottom. So it's going to break. The business isn't going to work. Bear with me. The cake analogy, I promise you, works, right? The emotional mental layer is either the cream or the jam, whatever you want. Then you've got the spiritual level of business, which my perspective of business is that business is a spiritual journey. Business is a healing journey. And every obstacle that you face in business doesn't mean that you're doing it wrong. Doesn't mean that you're a failure. Doesn't mean that it can't work for you. Just means we've got to do some healing work. It just means that we need to really dive into what within you is blocking the result that you want. So that's the spiritual layer. And then the final layer, which is the top of the Victoria sponge. One day I'm going to do a video making a business Victoria sponge cake.
That's right. Let's shift to the kitchen. I want to see that. Yeah.
I'm very bad at baking, so this would have to be a very special occasion. I'm going to be honest. The top of the sponge is the energetic layer of business. So this is where we talk about manifestation, for those of you guys that know this, right? This is where we talk about, creating from thoughts, creating from frequency. That's the Joe Dispenza work. That is the Abraham Hicks work. It all fits into the energy layer. And so multidimensional business is basically speaking to mastering all 4 planes of business, right? Because each plane is 25% of the business puzzle. That's what it is in a very short response to you guys.
So that's an interesting point, though. I'd love to touch on that a bit more. You see all 4 of these pieces in the multidimensional business space as equal. That's interesting, because you don't hear that very often. Usually this is more important than this. Talk to us a little bit about why or how, maybe even the how of how you kind of discovered that each of these 4 things are equal.
I think, again, because of my background in personal development and human behavior, everyone always thinks their part is more important, right? I remember when I used to study, science at uni, the biologists would be, the physicists would be like, our science is better than your science. And then the chemist, the biologist would be like, our science is more important than your science, right? And so in healing, it's the same. And it's such bollocks. That's an English word, by the way, if you don't know what that means. It's my favorite English word that exists. But in the healing world, it's the same. We've got the nutritionists, and the nutritionists are like, my way is the best way. And then the energy doctors are like, no, it's, and I really don't think that's helpful, because what is transformational is understanding all of the pieces fit in one unified whole. Okay, so nutrition might be the key for this person, energy medicine might be the key for that person, right? This person might need more help with strategy, this person might need more help with some form of inner block they need to work on. It's not better or worse, it just is, right? So if we see it all as equal, then we're not in a hierarchy. We're not kind of in our ego, who's better than the other person. It just gives you a framework of looking, okay, this is where I'm at in business and I'm facing this and I want to go to this result, right? What part of the business pie, cake, puzzle, whatever analogy you want to use is the one that needs work right now. And I think that's a more balanced, healthy, holistic approach, not just to business, but life.
I love that because it reminds me a lot of our conversations we've had with a lot of folks in the nonprofit area of it's always like, I want to feed the kids, but I want to feed the kids my way. It's like, okay, no, we're all trying to feed the kids. We can all do it with all of our different paths. We can all work together on this. I love that holistic approach there. What I'm curious about is how do you think is the best way to attack these four areas? Because I think a lot of the time when we start to break down life into these different categories, these different areas of self-development, I want to get better at business. I want to spend more time with my family. I also want to start working out and eating healthy and do it. And you just kind of start putting all these together. And then it's this really long list of like, all right, let me just make all those changes right now. Is that the approach, or is it more a pick one, knock it down, go to the next? What are your thoughts on that?
Yes to both, but I think when you've got more than two goals, just to make it complicated for you, I think when you've got more than two goals, you're going to lose focus, right? And business is about focus, not about rigidity, but it's about clarity of vision and, anchoring into the vision that you're creating. So if you've got 1,000,000,001 goals, you're probably not going to create any of them, right? So focus on two. So that's why I'd say I would look at someone when I'm working with them originally. I'd say, okay, we need to work most on, team maybe, or we need to work most on this strategy because the strategy that you've been using is clearly not working for you, whatever it is. But also simultaneously true. And what I love about life is that many things can be true all at once. That is great. Is that the way that the framework works and the way that we've designed it is that it's not just focus on this, then focus on that. It's like an ever-flowing system. So we teach processes, right, for people to be able to, for example, if we compare this to healing in the nervous system, which I would like to, what's a healthy nervous system? What is someone that is resilient to trauma? Because that exists. You can have people that are resilient to trauma. A healthy nervous system is someone that can go into fight or flight and then come back into rest and repair and it not be a problem, right? So I think the people that are healthiest and best in business are people that are versatile and flexible in their behavior. So at some stage, long-term goal is that you want to be able to understand and operate all planes and bob in and out of them, right? Because they're all four planes of our existence that are simultaneously happening.
Is that go?
That's I love. Well, I was just going to touch on the fact that I love that aspect, and it's something that we have talked about at Tribe and Purpose a lot. Is this whole fallacy of a work-life balance, and there's me over there working, and now there's me over here, and the rest of my life that it's all life. And that's just such an interesting aspect. And I love the fact that you've taken it even one step further in this understanding our body, understanding, our whole humanness thing beyond just the physicalness of it, and turn that into a business aspect, a business a way to successfully run and grow a business. And what was popping into my head is how did you go from the yoga mat shaman thing to I can do this, I can apply this to a business? I mean, that's back to the hippie on the yoga mat with the the ring home thing going to, all right, we got to have the data. We got to, what did it cost us to get that lead? We got to tweak this. We got to do that.
That's such a funny question. I think I've always been weird. I think that's a fair point. So I'm going to start really from the start. My father is a Norwegian crime fiction translator. Yes, you heard that correct. My father is a Norwegian crime fiction translator. So my upbringing. Can you imagine this? I think this is a funny scene, right? I'm at school and I'm probably like 5 years old, and the teacher asks, "What do your parents do?" And everyone's putting up their hands, and they're like, "My mum's a teacher, my dad's a postman," and I'm going, "My dad's a Norwegian crime fiction translator." Not very cool, guys. Not very cool. Then is cool.
I gotta ask, are these Norwegian crime fictions that he's translating into other languages, or are these other crime fictions he's translating into Norwegian? Like, I gotta narrow in on this business model.
This is a very important point you bring to our attention. So he primarily translates Norwegian crime fiction novels like Jo Nesbø, Knausgård, I think is his name, into English. My dad actually speaks 7 languages. He was born in Egypt. Like he's 75 and he runs 10K a day. My dad is like, he's quite an inspirational example for me. Anyway, so my upbringing and what I learned as a child was you can be as weird as you want and still make money. Like that's genuinely what I learned as a child. And my father would go to me, be like, "Hannah, what those teachers are I don't know if I should say this on a podcast, but I'm already saying it because I don't know why. He goes, "Hannah, what those teachers are telling you, it's bollocks. Listen to me. Find something that you love, do it better than anyone else, right? And you don't even have to worry about anything else." And so that's what was always in my mind. My mind was, find something I'm passionate about, do it better than anyone else, right? Be in the 0.0000001% in that category, and everything's going to work. And so actually the connect was very easy. So I got into the healing work to give a bit of greater context, because when I was 19, I was studying an undergrad in psychology, and I was, an excellent student. I got awards for my degree. But, when I was studying there, I was also diagnosed with anxiety and depression, and my mum was diagnosed with cancer. And so that initiated a 7-year journey of my mother passing away, me being a primary caregiver, right, and me learning how to live. So the difference between being a hippie and being a hippie that has a business, because apparently it's not undercover or in disguise at all, right, was conviction. It was, wow, I just saw my mother die unsatisfied after a life half lived. No way will that be me. And I will do everything in my power to change as many lives over my lifetime possible. So that it's quite significant. A lot of people in their 20s are out partying. I did that, but I also spent 3 years in end of life care. You don't end that the same person. So it was the gumption, it was the conviction, it was the decision. It was, okay, now I've got a purpose, and now we go, right? Hence why the business grew so fast.
What was it about business that brought you there? Because I think for a lot of people, I know, for me, I started in business and I got into the behavioral sciences, and that's kind of how I made that connection. Starting in the more behavioral side and then going into business, what brought you there? Because I think there's a lot of different areas that you could explore human behavior, and you could explore that kind of impact and purpose. What was it about business?
That's a very good question. I'm not sure I know. I think that business was the means to serve as many people as possible. And so I knew that I had the big long-term life goal. And so I had to learn how to do business. But it's all been, I teach building on intuition. It's all been extremely intuitive. I talk about the energetic thread, right? When you listen to life, it's always giving you the next step. So this was just the path. This is it. And this is, it sounds corny, but who I was born to be. You tell I'm hippie. You tell my parents were hippies. But for me, business is the ultimate journey of self-mastery. Like it's, human behavior, human potentiality. It's not just about not being depressed. It's about what is the greatest version of me that I can be in the years that I'm alive, right? And so it's an obvious translation to business. Like it feels, yeah. I don't know if that
it totally
answers your
does, because I
question
have to say
properly,
that's the same way I feel about it. Is I wanted to make the impact, and I look at businesses as the ways that you can make a sustainable impact, because you create an entity that can go on without you. And so I know that answers the question very well. Go ahead,
Amazing.
Oh, well, I was deep in thought on that because, yeah, well, it's that sharing, there, I think what I'm trying, I want to do, here's what I want to do, because we're talking we're still talking in the big hand, wonderful business, but there's still, there's a recipe there that I think people gloss over. And that's what I'd love for you to share, even though you're not much of a cook, you said, but in this sense of that process, how did you? Because there's a big piece, right? We can go from yoga mat to, hey, I can do this, but the hey, I can do this. This is my joking thing that I've always said about Tribe and Purpose is, hey, I registered with the state. I've got a limited liability company. I'm putting this sign out in the front yard, and I'm standing on the front porch waiting. Okay, here I am. I'm waiting. So talk us through how you got that the momentum, the flywheel, to use the engineering term that I love. How you got that thing going?
Again, a lot of bravery and courage in doing things that most people wouldn't do. I've invested, nearly multiple six figures in coaches, mentors, and working with the best people in business. Because when I make a decision, I make a decision. I don't care what it takes, actually. I think this is, like you said, an important ingredient in business. It's very easy to say, I've got a business, and then the second it gets hard, which it will at times, because life, right? To then not want to keep going or not wanting to be brave. So, I've worked with very big business coaches and all different types of business coaches, hence creating the model that I created. And so I think I was just willing to learn because I knew, I'm good at this, I'm not good at this because I've never done it before. So I need to put myself in spaces where there are a lot of people that are a lot better at me at that. And then I need to listen to them and I need to do what they tell me to do. Right. Like it sounds like something you shouldn't say, but I think some people, have a block with that. So, I tell this story when I began my business, my first year in business, I was making 400 euros a month. That's like maybe 440 US dollars a month for a year. Okay. And I was so stressed and broke. I remember calling my dad. I'm like, Dad, I'm just not going to eat breakfast. He was like, that's a terrible idea. That is not a response to your finances not going well. He's like, really, Hannah? And I joke because it was quite an extreme period of time. But even making 400 euros a month, when I found a course that I wanted to do, I made it happen. I worked 5 jobs at the beginning, right? And my mum was dying. I was working 5 jobs because it was like, I'm doing this. And I'm not saying that everyone has to do this, but I am saying there is something about knowing how to take a risk. And there is something about being courageous. And there is something about leaning in no matter what. And I'm pretty sure I wouldn't be where I am if I hadn't done
How
that.
do you balance that with like you said, not that everybody should do this. So how do you balance that advice a little bit? Because I always think that's an interesting piece of, you could dive in and just throw everything out the window, go all in on the business. We all could do that for a year or two. We probably, a lot of us might make a lot of progress, but it's also not necessarily like the healthiest balance of those kind of things. So looking back on it now, how would you kind of square that, diving all in, doing what needs to be done to take that risk with the idea of, having some healthy balance to life?
This episode of the Cam and Otis Show is brought to you by Tribe and Purpose.
Are you tired of dealing with the cost of bad leadership? It's time to make a change.
The Green Beret Leadership Program is your key to unlocking the full potential of your team.
By using GBLP to develop leaders in your business, you'll get a proactive and responsible team that embraces challenges, takes calculated risks, and takes action without constant supervision.
Developing great leaders can take a lot of time and energy, and that's why businesses tend to opt for the trial by fire and the School of Hard Knocks path to leadership. The truth is that wastes time and money, and folks, there's never enough of either one of those, and puts lots of extra stress on your leadership team.
Oh yeah, and that stress has lots of bad outcomes for your team. Poor leadership drives away your quality talent, and the longer you wait to fix the problem, the more talent you're going to lose and the more money you're going to lose.
With the Green Beret Leadership Program, you can use battle-tested leadership principles of the Green Berets to develop great leaders in your team faster than with the School of Hard Knocks. You'll see changes in just a few short weeks.
And the longer you wait to take action, the more damage poor leadership can do and will do to your business.
Learn more about the impact of GBLP, that's the Green Beret Leadership Program, can have on your business, and schedule your free coaching call with the Green Beret coach. That's me, folks, Otis. Now at findyourpurpose.coach/GBLP. I'll say it again, findyourpurpose.coach/GBLP, or you can click the link in the description below.
In my context of life, if I was taken back, and this is probably not the answer that you guys want me to give you, I would do it exactly the same. And I don't care, because it got me to where I wanted to be in a very short period of time. You know, we hit 6 figures in our first year. We had $250,000 launch with our first year in 3 months. So, you know, I was, because of the context of my life experience, I was just, and it's who I am. I don't know if I'm joking. You know, my father is a Norwegian crime fiction translator. He had 2 kids under the age of 10, quit all of his jobs and began a business. You know, it's just, it's the way that I experience life. I think some people, and this is where we have to talk about resilience, and you have to be really honest with yourself, right? I've experienced a lot of big T traumas in my life, and I've done a lot of work around it. So my nervous system is able to deal with pressure, right? In a very, you know, I've just trained that in me, and I've trained that in me since I was a little girl, right? People are surprised because you guys can't see me, but I'm like 5'3", really, really small, look super cute, but watch out, right? So like, I just find that humorous. But I think some people value different things, okay? And this is where you have to know your values in the way that you build your business. If you value, you know, going slow, if you value, you know, building in a different way, if you're like, well, I'm only going to give it this many hours for this time because I've got 2 kids, then that's obviously a different context. But my context was no relationship, no children, and, you know, quite a rude awakening to my mortality. So it was perfect, and it was a right choice. And not everyone is going to come from that. So I think you need to think, and this is, you know, when you choose your business model, when you choose what you have to think about who you are, you have to know who you are. And I think we also need to speak about, as a business owner, you do have to work on your resilience, you know, because even if you do play it slightly safer, right? Not that you can play it safe and win, in my opinion. I don't know if I'm saying things that you guys don't want me to say to your listeners, but you're always going to have to take a risk, and you're always going to have to edge, because that's what's going to change things for you. But, you know, for example, I've got, you know, if I look at my clients, I've got some clients that started their business last year, and they're texting me today, and they've signed 30K in deals. They've just had 30,000 a week, and they're 1 year and 1 month into business. And this lady's a mum, but she was hungry. She knew that she wanted it. So she took a path more similar to mine. I've got other clients that are like, I just value slow, and I value being able to bake a banana bread in the afternoon. I personally don't value that. My partner would probably value it if I decided I wanted to do that. But I also hacked that one, okay? He was a chef for 13 years in the military. So do I? Isn't that great? That's what I'd like to teach everyone.
Oh, I think there's...
But do you see what I mean?
I think there's a lot of wisdom to the idea of, I don't know, what's coming to mind is the idea of, you know, it's like there's a certain amount of distance that you have to travel, and some people want to just sprint every single day, and they'll get there faster. That month or 2 that they sprint, year sprint, is going to, you know, wear on them in a different way. But then if you're like, okay, well, I want to take it slow and steady and have my family and all these kind of things, yeah, you're not risking the fact that you're taking away that time with your family, but you are risking a much longer period of time. If you're going the slower route, I'm now risking 3 years of my life towards this business before you reach the point where you know if it's working or not, because you are taking that slow route. So I think that's a really good way of looking at it. The other piece I was really curious about with you stepping into business, talking about, being the hippie coming in, is the creativity and like the innovation side of it. Something we've talked about a bunch on the show, Dad, is that there's two different forms of innovation, two different forms of creativity. There's the incremental, just chipping away at it, and then there's the radical. And the radical, the phrase I always love for is it comes from people who are young, either literally young or young in that field. Did you feel that when you came into business, that it was just this like, the numbers flying off the chalkboard, like none of this makes sense, move these things around, and then it was just boom, was that your experience with it?
I think I definitely fit into the young category, and even when I'm 80, I would fit into the young category, because I think my energy is like that. I'm like, let's do all these things, and my team are like, oh God, Han, be 1 second, less ideas, please. Yes, I do think, let me tell you a story that's kind of related, and I will bring it back. I have the privilege that, now I am in business, I'm connected to certain people. I'm invited to, invite only kind of trainings where you've got some of the richest, most famous people on the planet. And I live in Ibiza. A lot of people don't know Ibiza. If you're American, you probably call it Ibiza, which is wrong, by the way. Like, very wrong. So a lot of quite successful people come to Ibiza, and they come here for the retreat. So I've been to these spaces, and I've seen, men that have got $5 billion companies under their belt. Okay, that's impressive. And I've seen them get on stage after a breathwork session and cry. I'm not going to say names, okay, but cry. And then there was this tech billionaire that came over and hugged me and cried. It was just this whole thing. And he said on this stage, he said, don't do it, to all of the younger business owners. He said, don't do it. And what I heard was, don't do it this way. Because I think a lot of people in business have built a certain way, right? Because they thought it was the only way. And the results we can see, right? If you're looking and you're observing and you're listening to other people, you can see, okay, do I want $5 billion companies, but, my relationship doesn't work. I'm burnt out. I'm exhausted. My answer to those questions is no, And so then I know I have to innovate. Then I know I have to find a different way. And so I think it's really important to keep a young mind always, just because something's been done for a really long time doesn't mean it's the right thing to do, right?
Yep.
That is so important. I think that's a really good piece. There's a couple of, I got my friend Todd here in town. Todd owns Red Lake Brewery, and Todd literally on the cusp of bankruptcy used 7 credit cards to get his business up and going. Slept on people's couches because he couldn't afford rent and all this stuff to get the business up and running. Alex Hormozy tells the same sort of story. When everything crashed and burned, he's like, well, I've got this credit card that has $100,000 limit. I'm going to tell everybody just go. And that kind of risk acceptance is where you're at in life and who you are in life. It's not just an age point. It's not just whether you got kids or spouse or parents or whatever. It doesn't matter. It becomes a choice, and there's so many different ways. And I think that's the key piece right there. There is not one path. Pull off the book and read about Musk or Bezos or Hormozy. I mean, you name somebody. Your path does not follow theirs. The way they did it, there's some great lessons. And it doesn't mean that you have to do the same thing. I don't need to go out and get an American Express Platinum card to kick off my business so that I can, put myself and my family and everything else on the cusp of bankruptcy, because if something goes wrong, there's drive to it, but there's some, I hate to say luck, but you know what, dadgummit, there is. You set yourself up for luck, but there's still the probability that it ain't going to go right. How do you, Hannah, accept that probability of failure and mitigate the the effect of risk, of that risk coming true in that sense?
I don't believe failure is an end point, it's just a midpoint. So if you change the
Mm.
conceptualization of failure, I've failed numerous times, but all I need to do is keep going and I'll arrive at the success, right? So as long as you don't have the failure as the end destination, it really doesn't matter, you know? And so I've got some qualities that are genuinely not considered positive qualities. Like I'm very stubborn. This is helpful in business, right? Because like my partner always says it to me. He's like, "You are incredibly stubborn." And I'm like, "Yes, but this is a good thing." And I'm going to tell you why it's a good thing. So every time that I've failed, which is many, okay, and anyone that has created anything will tell you that, I just see it as like, okay, what did I have to learn? Right? How can I tweak this and how can I keep going? And I think the people that end up not getting where they want is that they internalize their business results and they let that affect their worthiness. So let's say, for example, you've got someone and they launch a program, because I've got an online business, so it's the context of an online business. They launch a program, they thought it would be a 6-figure launch, and they brought in 30,000 instead of 100,000, let's say. So maybe that's a failure for someone in a viewpoint, but you've got two different ways to look at it. One person can go, I'm crap at business, I'm a failure, I knew I'd never make it, my dad was right about me, my boyfriend in high school when he said that I'd never do anything is right about me. And you're going to get stuck there, okay? You're going to be there for a really long blooming time. Or you can be like, this is a thing that happened. It has got nothing to do with my innate worthiness as a human being. However, there is an opportunity to learn some lessons around business. What did I not do? What could I improve? Maybe my marketing message didn't land properly. How could I shift my marketing message? Okay, let's go do an experiment. Let's go do some market research. Let's launch it in a different way. Boom, you have a 200K launch. Like, you have to be able to not take things personally, right? I think to be successful in business in the long term, if not, you're going to be on this emotional roller coaster, and that is not fun.
There's another
Basically.
there's another side of it, talking about like the term that keeps coming to mind is like healthy entrepreneurship, having that balance and those kind of things, accepting those risks. And there's obviously everyone has a different taste for it, but I think it's really ironic, the people who we always hear talking about having that healthy balance are the people who already spent 20 years with a terribly unhealthy balance building their business. And then now that they made all this money, like, you know what, actually, the money doesn't matter. I already made it all. Now it doesn't matter, kind of thing. But what I think is really interesting as like a young entrepreneur looking at those lessons and looking at those different paths that people take, is this question always comes to mind for me of, do you need that pressure? Do you need that risk in order to hit that top level? The kind of the idea that with the safety net below you, you have the safety net, so you don't actually try as hard. And I know that's very open-ended, but I would love to throw that over to you, Hannah. What are your thoughts on that kind of a thought process?
So this is an opinion. I can't say that this is truth. I think that we have different characteristics in people, and this is a character question. As in, I don't need pressure to move. I always move. I don't know how to not move. I am this, right? So for me, a big thing, especially over this last year, is learning to create without pressure. I don't think it is necessary, and create from a different place. So let's look at human potentiality and behavior again. So what do we know about the human nervous system? Okay, we have two options. We have fight or flight, right? And we have rest and repair. Now, when you're in rest and repair, okay, it means that you have connection to inspiration. It means that you have connection to creativity. It means that you can do your best thinking. So actually, if you have an experience of pressure and pressure puts you into fear, you make stupid decisions because you're scared. That is something that I've seen time and time again. If you're able to move in a relaxed body state, right, you have greater access to intuition, inspiration, creativity. So your performance, because your business success actually depends on your performance as an entrepreneur. So the better that you can be on point with you, right, your well-being, and how you know how to operate yourself, as strange as that sounds, the better the business is going to do. I don't want a business personally, right, where I have to always create from pressure. I want a business, right, where I create because it's who I am. Yet, I do like a goal. I do like, I don't, but here's the piece. Some people have an unconscious programming which says, right, I only move if I have to. The typical people, I don't know if any of you guys did this, but like, typical people, they've got an exam and they study for it the night before and they do an all-nighter. In my 4 years of university, I would have been ready to sit my exam a week prior. Do you know what I mean? That's just who I am. So like, I think sometimes people have an unconscious program that unless there is, for example, my partner was in the military for 13 years. So he's learned, he's happiest and he thrives under pressure. He did 2 wars in a sinking ship before the age of 19. So that's affected his programming. Yeah, can you imagine? He thinks for him it's like the highlight of his life. I'm like, we are very different people. I cannot imagine a sinking ship to be one of my top life memories, but it is for him. So, so for him, he's had to really work on, hitting money goals before they need to be done. And I do think it is helpful if you have that programming to look at it, because if not, you're always going to unconsciously kind of create a roller coaster, and it doesn't have to be that hard,
This episode of the Cam and Otis Show is brought to you by Evergood Adventure Wines.
Our loyal listeners know Evergood's founder, Matthew Hexter, and our good friend. From his appearances on the show, they have never disappointed. And Evergood Adventure Wines doesn't disappoint either.
No, it doesn't. Evergood is a craft winery from Colorado that makes wine from lemons, not grapes.
That's right. Picture this, adult lemonade.
Oh yeah, perfect for your next backyard barbecue or hanging out with friends at the beach or the pool. No need to drink a warm red grape wine when it's 100 degrees out or much hotter here in Tucson. Evergood over ice is the perfect refreshment for a hot summer day.
And they come in a variety of flavors, including lemon, strawberry, lime, my favorite for margaritas, grapefruit, and watermelon, which comes in a cool pouch, by the way. These non-carbonated wines check all the boxes: gluten-free, vegan, low sugar, and low in sulfites. Best of all, they taste damn good, and they have fun names too.
Yeah, like their OG lemon wine called Skierpy. Yeah, y'all heard that one right, Skierpy. And I'll tell you, Skierpy is also one of my favorites.
Evergood now ships to 41 states, so you can order your lemon wines online at evergoodadventurewines.com.
Plus, Matthew is being kind enough to offer 20% off for all of our listeners. Just use promo code CAM-OTIS at checkout to get 20% off and start enjoying these amazing lemon wines.
So y'all go to evergoodadventurewines.com. Yeah, boy, evergoodadventurewines.com. That's a mouthful, folks. I'm going to say it the third time. evergoodadventurewines.com, or click the link in the description in the show. Click buy now to redeem your Cam and Otis Show exclusive discount. Yeah, that's awesome, and I can vouch for your partner's feeling of the living in crisis, because that's that was the way the military that is the way the military operates. It's crisis management. You show up and say, all right, what's the fire today? I got my fire extinguisher ready. I'm ready. I'm here at 5 o'clock in the morning, ready to start spraying it around, because that was how we operated. And there's irony to this, because we spend so much time planning things, but we plan this great plan, but then we operate in crisis mode. And that's there's good and bad to that, in that ability, if you're consciously aware. How do you, and we can pick on your partner, even though I haven't met him yet. We can pick on him. How are you helping him train that mindset? Because it's a great skill, believe me. Ooh, I'm getting excited just thinking about that skill. Of, if the house is on fire, all right,
You're
I'm ready.
To go back in that foxhole.
It's that, I mean, yeah, I am.
There's something about this of choosing a partner like that as a woman. Like it's not a coincidence that he's my partner, and we joke about this. I'm like, if there's an apocalypse, what am I going to do? I'm going to crawl on the floor and I'm going to turn into a little ball and I'm going to cry. Do you know what I mean? He's going to carry me out of there. And that is something that I value. Like, I value that. And this is something that we joke about a lot. And, I don't know if there was I'm strange. I like to research things when I get an idea in my head. So I was researching plane crashes. I'm really sorry if anyone's scared of plane crashes. And there was a crash where they made a mistake in the operations board when one plane took off too soon and it crashed into another. Okay. The stats on who survived was incredible. Everyone that survived the planes were the people who were able to act under a situation of crisis. Okay. So it was people that had had a first response job and their wives. That's who survived, right? And I joke, and I showed Craig, I was like, look, we're always going to be fine. He's like, stop being so strange, Hannah. I'm trying to go to bed, right? That's exactly how the conversation went. Leave me alone. But you know, it is a skill set. It really is a skill set, because a lot of people freeze in danger, and I think it's something to value. I think for him, seeing how I live life has been very intriguing, if not disconcerting to start with, because the way that I've built the business is very kind of almost peaceful, right? And so, I mean, I do a lot of energy healing and trauma work on him, which is amazing, you know, that he allows me to, and he loves it. I know, to start, you know, but just, he now requests it, right? Oh, Han, this is coming up. Can you clear this? Can you do this? Can you help me reprogram my mind? Can you give me a tool? He doesn't really understand what I'm doing, but he likes it. So, and it works. So it's a really nice harmony, I would say, in a relationship that we've both got. Because it's not saying that one thing is better than the other. It's just saying, where is this, what context is this appropriate, right? In an emergency, you want to call Craig. You do not want to call me. To be clear, do not call me. Call him, right? But with business, I've helped him and supported him a lot, and it's complementary energies in the end, you know? But yeah, it's a neurological reprogramming. So what I help him with is changing belief systems and changing the way the nervous system operates.
I like that, because I was just thinking, you know, I find myself going back and forth between that, because I spend a lot of time at the strategy level and spend a lot of time in the ops level, you know, the crisis mode. And even now in business, in the day to day, it's like, yeah, don't need to do that yet, sort of thing. And you find yourself, and it's really interesting to think about that. And I've seen that in clients and just folks I know also, and that you're creating a crisis out of something that doesn't need to be. And that's, you know, is there a modality, a healing thing that you teach people? Because I think that could be a really good nugget that somebody could put in their pocket and walk away with from this show.
Let's go really practical. There's an Earl Nightingale technique, and I think Earl Nightingale wrote the book where he shared this. 50s? I don't know, but it was a while ago. And it's this simple, okay? This is what I teach to my clients that struggle with procrastination, or, you know, leaving it till the last minute. Every morning I wake up and I ask myself, what are the 6 most important things that must happen today? And I've literally got a planner. We print these out for my clients. You can see them here, okay? And it's literally a list of 6 things, if you can't see it, right? And in the bottom, it's like, do I commit to doing these 6 things before going to bed, right? Put the most boring one first. Because those are the ones that are forgotten, right? So, you know, some of my clients, you know, we're in sales jobs, and it gets to the end of the 30 days of the month, and I'm like, did you sell this month? And they're like, no. I'm like, well, what did you expect to happen? So sometimes we have conversations around this. I'm like, number 1 needs to be selling. For example, I teach social media strategies, right? So you need to sell on your social media to sell on your social media, right? Sounds obvious. It's not, apparently. And then it's that level of commitment, and you train the commitment. And I also train people in, you know, just knowing, you know, every time you break a promise to yourself, you trust yourself less. It's got nothing to do with me, but what's the kind of relationship that you want to have with you? And so we'll have a lot of conversations around mindset and that with my clients. But the 6 things a day, like, you know, people get lost in superfluous shit. Oh, I've got to organize my shelf. Or maybe I'll just go, my partner, episode. I'm going to make him listen to this episode. I'm so sorry. I'm just going to go and run an ultra marathon. Like, that's the kind of thing that he would just wake up and do. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm just going to go run an ultra marathon with a weighted vest. Like, right, babe, of course. And then other things will be, you know, he's obviously exhausted after that, will be left to the side. So when you have that type of personality, that really, really helps. And I think something else that really helps is being vision orientated instead of daily orientated. So every morning I look at, what am I creating this year? What is my big goal? And then I do those 6 actions from that, right? If you want to get more woo, I channel my to-do list, but I don't know how woo this space is. So I'm going to leave it at that.
We're somewhere around 20 to 30% woo, I would say. Is that about right, Dad?
Yeah, that's about right. That's it. I'm more in the 20%. He's more in the 30%. Let's just say that.
Okay, noted.
Yeah. Well, and that's a great footnote that I'd never quantified my woo-ness. But now that I've quantified my woo-ness, I'm putting that into what I've learned. But that ain't the real thing that I learned today talking on the show with you. I love the way you talked about failure. Now I've talked about it in a very similar way from a military aspect of it, because that's how I learned. You know, I don't like failure, because failure in the world that I grew up in means people die. So I don't play the, you know, fail fast, fail forward, fail often crap that, you know, people in Silicon Valley play. I just don't like that, and I don't accept that. I look at it as I missed the target. And if I miss the target, then I'm going to adjust onto the target. You can call it Kentucky windage. You can say you can say the old school field artillery, where we're going to add 50, right 25, or whatever, fire for effect. That's the differentiator in it. And I think your point of saying it's not an end point, it's a point to learn from. And I think that's a great way of thinking about it. And I appreciate that. Camden, how about you? What do you
I think this is the best little nugget to pass on to people who are interested in entrepreneurship, is just the be as weird as you want, but be the best at it. You know, we talk all the time in business. It's like, well, what can I control inside of this? You know, Dad, we talk about it a bunch with Tribe and Purpose. What are the things that we can control here? Just being the best at the things that you can control. Like, be as weird as you want, but be the best at it. I love that kind of a thought process of just diving all in on that weirdness. I think that's a great way to look at business. Even, I guess, even just not just entrepreneurship, but, you know, make a weird business model and just be the best at that weird business model.
What
Anna,
I
how about
learned
you?
and what
What'd
I
you learn?
appreciate from you both is how much fun and laughter you can have whilst also.
Hold on a second. Let's restart this, because I think we lost your Bluetooth. There's a huge echo going on your end.
Oh, yeah.
Double check. Make sure your
1 minute.
earpiece didn't die on you.
Is it better like this?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Shall I start
There
again?
you go. You're back. That's perfect. Perfect.
Do you want
So
to
we'll
go all
start
the way back then?
Yep. You want me to go?
I think, honestly,
all the way back to
much as
where?
I hate to do it, I think we got it all the way back would be a lot easier. For my notes, especially.
Okay, all the way back to where, though?
I'm looking at my
back
production notes to 47 minutes, Dad. No, to you doing the what did I learn? Let me just finish the note. 47 to 50. Perfect. All right, go.
All right. Good. All right. So here's what I learned. You know, that there's been several things that I love the way you say it. And, you know, a lot of times when you hear something, it's the same, but you hear it differently, so you learn it again. And when you were talking about failure earlier in our show, and you described it as not an endpoint, it reminded me of how I look at failure. You know, as a soldier growing up, I didn't accept failure, because failure in my world, and it still feels this way, failure in my world means people die. And because of that, I don't like this whole Silicon Valley thing of fail fast, fail forward, fail often. I think that's crap. And that's why I really enjoyed the way that you talked about failure not being an endpoint. It's a point to learn from. Because I look at failure, I don't even use the word. I look at it as I missed the target. And if I miss my target, I can adjust onto my target. Whether I'm hunting, sniper, whatever you want to call it, sales call. If I miss that target, then what do I need to do to adjust onto that target and then pile on to that success? That's what I learned. Camden, how about you?
Yeah,
What'd
for
you
me
learn?
today, it was Hannah, what you said of be as weird as you want, but be the best at it. I love that philosophy carrying into whether it's entrepreneurship or anything else. I think if you want to follow something weird, I grew up in Colorado. We got a lot of weirdos out there, right? I love my weirdos. Tucson's got a lot of weirdos too. I love all my weirdos, my rugby weirdos too. But it's like, you got to be the best at it if you're going to do that, right? And I love that thought process of just dive all in on whatever that weirdness is, create the weirdest business model ever, but make it the best business model. Figure out the best way to do that weird thing. And I think there's a lot to be said for when you do dive in all in on that weird thing, you can create create that niche, you create that market, like a Norwegian crime fiction translator. Like, no one would, you go to a bank with that business plan, they're saying no. But you dive all in on it and you become the best Norwegian crime fiction translator in history. Well, then now you got
Not
business,
much
right?
competition in that realm, is that? Not hard.
I was thinking to myself when you brought that up earlier, he either made all of the money or like none. Like there's it's got to be one or the
He did very
other.
well for himself. He'd be embarrassed if I told people, but he did very well for himself. He's the only European to win a literary award for translation in America. Yeah, imagine.
Oh, wow.
I know.
Wow.
None of us really understand
Oh my
what that
gosh.
means, but we're very happy for him.
That's really.
Right?
Yes, we are.
What I learned
Hannah,
and what I appreciate
Hannah,
from you
what'd
both
you learn
is
today?
the amount of humor and humanity that you bring to business conversations. And I think it's a real beautiful reminder of how, as much as we're talking about business and building businesses and doing serious things, that bringing lightness, play, connection, genuine relationships, humor is only going to ever make it better. So that's the big thing that I'm taking with me today. And I learned.
Awesome. How do folks find you? See what you got going on
So
next.
my
Follow you.
Instagram is
See
the
what's
best
happening.
place to find me. My name is Hannah. It is spelled with a J. That's not a typo. It doesn't exist in Spain. It doesn't exist in England. Unsurprisingly, my parents made it up. Okay, so it's Jana. That's how you spell Hannah, apparently. Bartlett, Bartlett, Alonso. And if you drop me a message on Instagram saying podcast or anything like that, I'll give you a link to my free multidimensional business course so you can get a better feeling of the 4 dimensions of business and what I actually do. And yeah, just come say hi as well. I love hearing from everyone that's watched these podcasts. So yay, thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today.
Likewise,
It's
thank
been
you very
great
much.
hanging out with you. Camden, run us out.
All right. Thank you all for listening to today's episode of the Cam and Otis Show. And a special thanks to our guest, Jana Bartlett, for joining us today. Remember, you can watch full episodes of the show on YouTube at the Cam and Otis Show. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please make sure to share it with other lifelong learners in your tribe so that they can enjoy it too. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. As always, the full archive of episodes available at www.camandotisshow.com. Thanks again, and we'll see you all next time.